Hi, I'm Angie Veman, and welcome to Totally Clutch. This is the podcast for women like you to find ways to simplify your business and personal life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. All right, welcome back to another episode of Totally Clutch. I'm Angie Veman with Clutch Businesses, and Totally Clutch is the Clutch Businesses podcast and vlog. So we bring on experts, in a variety of different industries and with a lot of different expertise. And so today we're going to be talking about how to use sound in your marketing. And so we've got a really special guest with us, somebody who's been in the industry for years and years and years as a voiceover actor. And so we're going to hear all about where we're at with sound now and where we're headed and how you can incorporate it into your business and your marketing. So with that, I want to pose a question before we dive into the conversation, and just so that you're thinking about this as we're talking and as you're listening. So, one of the things that I think is so interesting is, podcasts and Clubhouse and all of these really, not really, but only audio focused platforms are blowing up right now. So it's surprising. It feels like in some ways kind of a step back because we have access to create beautiful videos on our phones, all on our own now. We have access to beautiful imagery and things like that. And with all of that, in the year 2021, we're finding that we're moving back to audio only. Podcasts, you don't see people's faces. There is no imagery. There are just people's voices. Clubhouse, the same thing. There's no imagery. It's just people talking, and we're captivated by it, right? So when you plan, so with that in mind, I would imagine that when you're planning your marketing, when you're creating your marketing strategy, it's probably very rare that you consider sound when you're creating that strategy and the power and the importance of sound in that. And so, sound it has the ability to influence people in so many different ways, and yet it's something that we don't put a lot of focus on. And so today we're going to hear from Jodi Krangle. She is a voice actor and again has been in the industry for a long time. And so we're going to talk about how to incorporate that the importance of sound, the power of sound in your marketing. So welcome to the show, Jodi.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Thanks so much for doing this. I think this is going to be a great conversation and something that is really valuable for people. So thank you for being here.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a bit about your background and the work that you do before we get started?
Sure. I've been a full-time voice actor since 2007, so I've been doing a lot of that advertising, marketing, corporate narration, company IVRs, all sorts of things. That's like the telephone systems. All sorts of things that help companies make sure that people are aware of what their company sounds like. So as a small part of their audio brand, I got curious. I started asking questions. So in November of 2019, I started a podcast called Audio Branding, the Hidden Gem of Marketing. And I talk with all sorts of people who are experts in the field, and we talk about how sound influences us. So both in our buying decisions, but also in our daily lives. There's a lot that goes into this. And as human beings, we're kind of hardwired to emotionally connect with sound. And I feel that it's really unfortunate that companies these days are not paying as much attention to it as they should, because it's a great way to connect with your clients and your potential audience and anyone who gets who you are.
Yeah, that's incredible. And like we've been saying, it's just not something that is top of mind, which is surprising. So, can you tell us first just what is audio branding?
Sure. I'm going to go through a definition that the International Sound Awards actually made. I had mentioned before when we were talking, there's a fellow named Dr. Cornelius Ringe, who is in Hamburg, Germany, I believe. He started the Audio Branding Academy, and he also has something called the International Sound Awards, which I think have been going on since 2009. And they talk about all sorts of wonderful developments in the world of sound and advertising marketing and how it's being used. And yeah, so they're kind of defining what all of this is. But what they say that audio branding is, so this will give you a good idea, is a brand sound that represents the identity and values of a brand in a distinctive manner. The audio logo, branded functional sounds, brand music, or the brand voice are characteristic elements of audio branding. So it's a big umbrella. There's a lot that goes into that. And it could be like, the sound that an electric kettle makes from GE when it's ready to, use.
Yeah.
All sorts of like little, dings and beeps and little series of notes and stuff that happen when you get a transaction done with a MasterCard or a Visa, in a store or on your Alexa or in your Google Home. Like there's all sorts of sounds and such that go into the making of your brand and how you are letting people understand who you are as a company. It's not
Mhm.
just your visual, your audio, your sound is a part of that too.
And so is it important that that sound is like, I mean, are there certain sounds that people should be incorporating in all of the content that they're putting out there that that identifies or that can be an identifier for
I
your
think it
business?
depends. It depends on the company and it depends on how many touch points you have. So if you're making videos for your website, what music are you using? What's the voice you're using? Do you have sound effects? If you do, what do they sound like? If you're using on hold, for instance, just to, yeah, I use this a lot as an example, but if you're a high end jewelry store and you have 80s hairband music on your on hold, that's really not a good sound for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you are sounding the way you're looking because you've probably given a lot of thought to how you look.
Mhm.
So give as much attention to how you sound and make it match the identity that you've given yourself in the visuals.
Sure.
So it's a combination of a lot of things, but the bottom line is who are you trying to reach? Who is your avatar? I mean, this is marketing 101, right?
Yeah.
So, who's your avatar? What do they find intriguing and interesting? What would they want to listen to? What do they want to see? How are you reaching those people? And it's more of a combination of who you are and the people you're attracting as opposed to, oh, I just like this piece of music and I want to use it. Well,
Yeah.
okay, that's okay, but is that who you are and is that who your potential client wants you to be?
Hmm.
I mean it's there's a Venn diagram in there between, all of these things that you need to pay attention to. You need the
Yeah.
sweet spot.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I think, when I was thinking about this, I guess the prevalence
Mhm.
of TikTok and Instagram Reels, where you've got people like pointing and dancing to music and all of that kind of stuff, that those things they're so popular. Like
Mhm.
everybody is doing them, right? And so I was thinking about it. I think I even put it in the description for this that, for our conversation that we don't they're so popular, people respond so well to them, not because they like to see somebody dancing around and doing all of that kind of stuff, right? Especially
Mhm.
middle-aged women, like nobody wants to see that. But it's because the music is fun, and
Mhm.
they're like people are then drawn into that, and they love to see what's going to pop up on the screen next. And so it's like this perfect fusion of all of these things, right? It comes together. But there's also a part of me that realizes that maybe that isn't, to what you were saying, maybe that's not really on brand for them. Like they're
Yeah.
getting a reaction
Sure.
and they're
Yeah.
getting followers and things like that, but maybe not necessarily people that are going to become customers or clients of theirs, because
That's
it's not
exactly it.
necessarily branded.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's something to be said for being a human being, you know? Like if you're a human in your marketing, people are going to like that. They want to know who
Yeah,
you are, right? If you're an individual business, if you're a service business, this kind of thing, then yeah, they want to know who you are, and I think that's perfectly valid. But if you are actually going for a sound that's a part of your brand, that is a part of who you are, I don't know that these TikTok videos are going to be taken
right.
all that seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's fun, but I don't know that it necessarily gets you clients.
right, right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so is there a difference between, I'm a total novice to this, even this concept of incorporating sound into marketing. Is there a difference between voice and sound in your marketing?
I think it depends on how you're using the term voice. If you're talking about a brand voice, that's actually a lot bigger than sound.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean, if you're thinking about, because if you're, quotations, the voice of your company isn't
Yep.
just about the voice of your company. It's
Right.
about the way you look. It's about the way you sound. It's about everything you produce. It's about who you are as a company and who you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
So your brand voice is a pretty big umbrella. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on there. And I would not say that sound is everything in there, but I think it definitely deserves a big part of that.
hmm Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because I guess I was thinking, everybody's got, not everybody, but a lot of businesses, have like their brand kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got
Yep.
their brand colors, they've got their brand fonts, all of that kind of stuff. And, I'm thinking, well, maybe voice then just becomes another part of that brand kit. But really it's,
That's part of it.
is
Voice
it?
is
Okay.
all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The voice is how you're reaching out to your clients, right? That's
hmm
fundamentally what that means. So that incorporates a whole bunch of different things, the visuals and the audio and everything you produce through your company, because it all says something about who you are.
Yeah.
So my only point is, if you're going to spend so much time on your visuals and then none of those visuals are going to be seen in Alexa and Google Home and all of that stuff, well, how do you differentiate yourself as a brand?
Yeah.
We were talking about this a little briefly before, but baked beans, right? Like
Yeah.
a brand of baked beans. Are they all the same? I don't know. Do you have a
Mm.
particular brand that you like? How are you going to be able to pick that brand when you're ordering from Instacart on your Alexa?
Yeah.
How are you going to know which is which, is what I'm saying. And because we are a multi-focused uh, type of community right now. I mean, we are so multitasking. We're doing millions of things. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating a little, but many,
Right.
many different things at the same time, and a lot of us are still at home and having to deal with that. There's a lot going on in our lives, and having to put your entire focus on something doesn't always work. And when
Mhm.
you're talking about something that has a video component to it, it needs your entire focus.
Mhm.
So, music, audio of other kinds, voice, the advertising you hear in between podcasts, the podcasts themselves, audiobooks, all of these things are able to fit into the corners of our multi focused lives and still make an impression on us. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the focus and the fascination is coming from for all of this audio. Because, first of all, as producers, I don't know about you, but like if I don't have to put makeup on for a
Yeah,
day,
I
I'm happy.
know.
I'm like, this is
Totally.
you relax, right? Wear my yoga
Right.
pants, not put any makeup on. I don't have to be on camera. There's like no expectations. Just
Yeah.
just speak. that's
Yeah.
that's a good day for me. I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
So I think that a lot of the content producers are also finding that, especially after this whole COVID thing. We're all sort of breaking it down into its component elements and figuring out what is essential and what isn't.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that there is still always going to be a place for video, totally. But at the same time, for those of us who create a lot of content over a long period of time, it's sometimes a lot easier to create that content using audio only.
Mhm.
There's just a lot less involved, and it can, in some instances, be just as intimate as being on video.
Right. Right.
So,
And even, I mean, to your point, it couldn't be even more intimate in some ways. I mean,
mhm.
I notice a huge difference. Like, there are some days where I'm like, for whatever reason, I take getting prepared for these conversations a little bit more seriously, and days when I don't. Or like, I was running late, the dog took a lot longer to walk or something
Yeah,
like that, and I'm like flying to my computer to log in. And
sure.
like those tend to be like more, I don't know, the conversation is just a little bit more alive because I'm
Mhm.
not like, it's not about putting on a face. It's
Yeah.
not it's really about like, I don't, there's just a vulnerability there that I think
Yes.
doesn't exist when you're trying to look perfect and have a cute outfit on and all that kind of stuff. So
I think
I
that's why
totally get that.
Clubhouse is so popular too, right? Like these are intimate social audio conversations that happen in between you doing a whole lot of things. You can listen while you're doing the dishes or while you're having a
Hmm.
walk or whatever. You can participate as you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Right.
And if you're having a conversation with someone, like you're saying, you're not concentrating on what you look like. You're concentrating on getting your point across
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having an actual genuine connection with someone.
Totally.
And yeah, I find that Clubhouse can be a really good way to do that.
Yeah, I think the first clubhouse that I joined, the first room that I joined, there was somebody that was like driving in their car, and one of the panelists was driving in their car, to having a chat. I mean, that was really, I don't know, it's cool because you catch people, it feels less scripted,
Yes,
and
very
it's
real.
just, yeah, yeah. That's great. And I do want to say, we were talking before this, and you had mentioned, when, even though I think less and less people are watching actual live TV,
Hmm.
but you were saying that even commercials, I mean, companies spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on TV advertisements,
Hmm.
and they don't, and those are usually the times when people are getting up and walking to the kitchen or something, or to the bathroom, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And wow, so the video doesn't even matter then, it's all about the sound. And
It is, yeah. And
yeah.
how are you presenting your company in sound? Because,
Hmm.
like I said, a lot of people are multitasking.
Right.
So they're hearing you, they're not seeing you in a lot of
Hmm.
cases. And if you're using the same license-free music that another competitor was using, or a completely different company that has nothing to do with you, you are not differentiating yourself. You don't
Right.
sound different, you know? And really, advertising is about being memorable.
Hmm.
Because if you're doing an ad and you're not remembering who did the ad in the first place, that is a failed commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting. And then you were also talking about, the rise of Alexa and
Hmm.
and things like that, people shopping through that.
Yep.
How, so have you seen companies start to, I guess, what are companies doing to draw attention to their brand through Alexa?
Well, for instance, we can take the case of MasterCard, who just, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they completely put together a sound system throughout their entire company so that all of the touch points of you using MasterCard, no matter where it is, also Alexa and Google Home, you're going to hear the same sounds for a transaction and it'll let you know what's happening. So when
Oh,
you
interesting.
actually, yeah, so when you actually buy something on an Alexa or a Google Home or these kinds of things, and I mean, those are the two that I bring up now, but there are bound to be way more of them as we
Yeah.
go. And, your appliances could have this kind of stuff. Like we're getting into the point where you can talk to just about everything in your
Right.
home, right? Like
Yeah.
it's going to be like that. So when you are trying to differentiate yourself as a company, then you need to think about, like I said, all the touch points you're likely to reach your client from. And those kinds of devices are likely to become much more important as the years pass.
Hmm.
And, especially like we were saying in the time of COVID when no one's leaving their house and they're getting Instacart and they're, buying a lot of stuff online, you want to have these kinds of sounds to let people know what's actually happening because you're not
Hmm.
seeing anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, MasterCard put together a whole sound system. And the really cool thing about what they did was that this is across, I mean, they're a global company, right? So they have sound that is using different instrumentation and different beats and different instruments across a whole bunch of different countries, so
Yeah,
that it relates to, it's very dynamic. It relates to the people that it's actually reaching,
that's
so that
cool.
they can, yeah, so that they can connect with it more deeply. And that, I think, is where we're heading into the future, because you can't just slap a piece of music on something and say that you did an audio brand. That's not how it works, right? It
Yeah.
has to be very dynamic. And I'm not saying that smaller companies can't do this, because they totally can. It's just
Hmm.
maybe a little more difficult to put the different pieces together.
Yeah.
Um, but if you go about making yourself an audio brand, that is something that's going to save you money later on. Because if you think about it, people are putting out content daily, and
Hmm.
like a whole bunch of different stuff. If you have to license a piece of music every time you do that, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Even for a large company, that's really expensive. So if
Hmm.
you make a piece of music that you can then dynamically change depending on what's happening on the screen, and it's still your brand, and you own that piece of music, no one else can use it, first of all, so you differentiate yourself that way. And you have a piece of music or a piece of audio that you can use across a whole bunch of different channels, make variations of it, and refresh it when you need to. And you don't have to be purchasing little pieces every time you make a new piece of content,
Hmm.
which saves you a ton of money. So if
Yeah.
you think about this, it really can be a money saving thing. I think people are intimidated by how much money it costs up front, but they're
Hmm.
not realizing how much money it saves them in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And then I guess along those lines, so I mean, you kind of started in this direction, but what can small businesses do to start to incorporate this into their marketing?
I think that you don't have to spend a whole huge amount of money to hire a musician who can create bits of pieces of music for you for any videos that you make, or any podcasts that you put out. Branded podcasts are a big way of getting your information out there to potential clients. Your on hold, again, does not have to
Mm.
cost a whole lot of money, but if you pay attention to it, it can advertise for you. And it can be that first touch point that actually gets people drawn into what you have to offer. So, music, voice, all of these things that are incorporated into these things, they, once you have a template, then you know how much it's going to cost you, and it doesn't have to cost a whole lot because you've already got some of those elements. It's like the visual. I mean, think about the intranet or the book or whatever of the visuals that these companies have put together. So you have
Mhm.
a logo, you have a font, you have colors that you use on a regular basis. So just add, we use this particular music. In this country, we use this particular music with these instruments.
Mhm.
Like we have a stinger and like an intro and an outro to a podcast, and it uses this music, and we use this voice on our on hold, and we can use bits and pieces of the music that we're using in our videos on our on hold, because it all needs to relate together, right? So it is a big ecosystem. And that's what it should be. It should be its own ecosystem, because then you know that everyone who experiences you knows who you are in audio the same way that they do when they experience your visual.
Yeah, and then how is there a way that people, outside of their hold music, are there things that they can do like on their website and
Mhm.
in their social media presence?
Sure. I mean, like for instance, I know on Clubhouse you can have music playing when you start the club, when you start the room. You can have music playing as people filter in, right? So that could be your specific piece of music. Or you could change it, with different instrumentation or different instruments depending on the topic of the day. There are all sorts of things that you can do with this, and all I'm saying is, if you think about how all of these are interrelated, then you can make more than a piece of music. It's a sound that is a part of you, that tells people who you are, the same way that your logo tells people who you are. And it's all interrelated. So So the sound will carry through with how your visuals are presented, and the visuals will also carry through with how the audio is presented, so that they work together and that people understand you on a deeper level. The sound really is our emotional context.
Hmm.
So we were having this discussion earlier, and I know that you don't have the same impression I do. But as a musician, yeah, but
Did
as
you
a
hear that
musician,
sound? That's my dog.
oh,
He's
okay,
making him. That's
that's
associating
okay.
with my brain. I'll keep him quiet. But yeah, you,
That's okay. It's all real. It's all real. So the point of that is that when you're watching a movie, for instance, uh, if you turn off the sound and you watch the movie, you will get the context of that movie, but you don't really have an emotional connection per se. It's the music of that movie that sort of gives you the idea of how you're supposed to feel about that particular scene. And I know that certain pieces of music while I'm watching certain things will automatically make me like break out in sobbing. Like I can't help it. So, and it's different for everybody. I mean, some people are more affected by it than others, but I find that if I want to not be emotionally connected and not cry because I'm in a public place, I can turn off the sound on a music, the sound on a piece of cinema, like a video or a movie or something. And that will then allow me to keep my equilibrium without being too affected. And I think that it works the opposite way when you are a company trying to emotionally reach out to your audience and your potential client, because you want to be able to reach them deeply. That's how you get clients. They want to know, like, trust. So, it just makes sense that that would be a good way to do it.
yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, now that we're talking about it, I know that I was making a joke about my dog barking, but like so I'm doing this in my kitchen right now because we're in the midst of a college move and all of that kind of stuff. And I've got the dishwasher going. The Roomba started like right in the middle of our conversation, and then the dog starts barking. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is anxiety producing sound for for marketing. But yeah, so there's just I guess a heightened awareness about how all of this impacts the way that things are perceived. And
Hmm.
so I guess from that standpoint, are there things that, I mean, you've given us some great ideas for what we can start to do in our marketing to incorporate sound. Are there things to watch out for that could shift things a little sideways as we start to play around with this?
I think that the danger would be not relating sounds to one another and not paying attention to the sounds and how they relate to your visual branding. So it should carry through with your visual branding because obviously you've spent some time on that. If you haven't, you probably should. And I think that they have to work in concert with one another. So you're not usually going to just slap a piece of music on something and say you're done, because that's not really how it works. That's not going to let people know who you are. Also, be careful that you don't just choose something you like, but that your end client may not like, because that can work against you too. And, you got to pay attention to not just what you like, but what the people you're trying to reach like, because you want them to know who you are, but you don't want to repel them because they don't like, um, as your end client, they're not getting who you are. And I don't think that there's a problem with repelling the people who don't get you. So once you put all this together, your visuals and your audio, and you are confident with all of that working together, and you're worried that you're going to push away certain people, I don't think you should worry too much about that, because if people know and like and trust who you are, then they will understand where you're coming from. And
Yeah,
it's those
totally.
people you want to reach. Yeah, so I think
Right.
I think a lot of the problem that people have is that they try to reach everybody,
Yeah.
and that's not productive,
Hmm.
and it's crazy making, because you're going to
Right.
spend so much time trying to be everything to everyone, and you won't really be telling people who you actually are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I mean, and that's that's again kind of a marketing 101,
Marketing
right?
101.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's but one of those things that is easy to forget for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Great. Well, okay, so you've also got, I'm going to put it in the chat here. Um, you've got something that a tool, a
hmm
resource that will get people kind of going on this. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, these are my 5 tips for coming up with an intentional audio strategy. So they're just some ideas of how you can think about all of this. And again, a lot of it is marketing 101. I'm not recreating the wheel here. I'm just relating it to audio and getting you thinking about how you can make this work for you. There are also at the end some resources that you can use to find voice talent, to find music, to find people who make music, to find potentially audio branding companies if you want to work with one of them. There are a whole lot of different ways to figure this out, so I don't think there's any one way, but I do think that you need to think of it as a broader spectrum of sound that matches the broad spectrum of your visuals and tells people in a more emotionally available way who you are and who you're not.
Yeah, and then people also have the opportunity to connect with you weekly
hmm
through your clubhouse room, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
every week I have pardon me. I have a clubhouse room that is talking about the power of sound. That's the name of the club. It's called the Power of Sound, and we talk about all sorts of things that have to do with sound. It's every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, usually for about an hour, and we talk about the power of voice, music, storytelling, podcasting, and audio branding specifically. So if someone's interested in the topic of audio branding, we have another one specifically on September 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern that people can have a listen to and participate in. And I have a bunch of pretty heavy hitters coming in on the panel there. So
That's
it's going to be
awesome.
quite the discussion. Yeah.
Cool,
hmm
cool. That's so fun. Well, I thank you so much for being here today, for sharing all of this incredible insight.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, I'm super excited to see what people do with it. And even like I said, having that additional awareness is pretty game changing in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. So
Is it
yeah,
okay to
please.
mention the podcast?
What's Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Just
Yeah.
because if they're
Yeah.
interested in audio branding, the podcast definitely is one to have a listen to. And it's just at audiobrandingpodcast.com. So there are some heavy hitters that I've interviewed there and that are coming up. So we're coming up on our 100th episode. So it's
Oh my
getting
gosh.
serious.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, and you can subscribe to that. So both with, for anybody listening, you can subscribe to your podcast
hmm
and also to your Clubhouse group so that you're just automatically, being fed, any updated conversations or any new conversations. So
Sure. Yep.
yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Jodi. I really appreciate it. And for anybody listening or watching, by all means, I would love to hear what you do with this and how it starts to show up in your marketing and branding and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that Jodi would love to hear too. So, by
Sure.
all means, reach out to either one of us and not even reach out. I would love to just hear what you're doing. So, you can put a comment here. You can email either of us, from our websites, whatever works. But I'd love to see how it starts to take shape for you.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks so much, Jodi. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your having
Okay.
me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Great conversation.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with all of your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some great things that can help you move from hustle to flow, because I believe in you and your business. Until next time.